one of the chaps, Chris Norton, was leaving a really secure job with Britannia Building Society, and it was right when things were going a bit pear-shaped with RBS and so on. And I remember him phoning me and saying, Dom, I'm not sure about this. I'm not sure about becoming a self-employed advisor at this time in 2008. I said, I'll be fine. It'll be fine. You'll be great. But it was that never give up. It was that whatever life throws at you, just don't give up. And if you're not making mistakes, you're arguably not going fast enough, not going hard enough. So it was like bang, bang, bang. Within 2 weeks, we had about 4 or 5 resignations. That was one of the toughest times. Quite often you find, certainly the entrepreneurs that I've met and dare I say worked with in the past, they're not particularly content in their own lives, I think. I think that's a shame, to be honest with you.
Dominic, welcome. Great to have you on.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, if you could just give us a little bit of background about your story, about your business, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, so I started what was Clear Mortgage Solutions around about 18, 19 years ago. We are a whole of market mortgage intermediary. So we essentially help people buy houses and hopefully remortgage and save some money on their monthly payments and that sort of thing. So the business, as I say, started about 18 years ago down in the Scottish borders. Yeah, it's kind of grown pretty much year on year, with the exception of a couple of years, not least of all the COVID years. And we're now one of the sort of bigger firms in Scotland. We have in the region, we've quite an unusual business in that we have some self-employed advisors and employed advisors. So we have somewhere in the region of about 70 employed advisors and around about maybe 100, just over 100 total in the business. So we're a decent size firm. We, as I say, we transact quite a lot of mortgages on a monthly basis, somewhere in the region of 250 to 300 mortgages on a monthly basis.
Amazing. And so can you just kind of go a little bit back to the beginning then and talk through your story and how you kind of ended up in this industry?
It's an interesting one actually. So how I ended up in the industry was I wanted to get into property. Property was kind of my passion, and I thought what would be a good way to get into property, i.e. find property, maybe become some sort of a property developer of some sorts. And so I thought actually back 19, 20 years ago, a good way would be to become a mortgage advisor. And then lo and behold, it's funny how these things work out, isn't it? But that's how I ended up starting Clear Mortgage Solutions, which is now trading as Mortgage Advice Bureau. Back then, as I say, I wanted to get into property, but that's what I was going to say. So what the actual way I got into it, I was running a sales team of insurance, door-to-door insurance sales, which is a really, really tough gig. And at the time, I was running a team in Edinburgh and one in the Borders. And I interviewed this guy one day to come and join the insurance sales business. And I said, so what do you do at the moment? He says, well, I'm actually a mortgage advisor. So I was like, tell me a little bit more about that. So he told me all about that, who his boss was, got his boss's name. And I'd had enough of doing that job at the time. I was all over Scotland. I was in Shetland, Orkney, Lewis, trying to convince people that this life insurance product was the best thing since sliced bread and they should buy it. And it wasn't a particularly nice job in the end. I was pretty good at it because I could sell, but I just detested it in the end. So anyway, I was interviewing this guy, and he says, yeah, I'm a mortgage advisor. So I phoned his boss that afternoon, interviewed with his boss the next day, and I quit my job the next again day and started Clear Mortgage Solutions pretty much then.
Wow.
Yeah.
Such a random way.
Yeah, I just had enough of it. I was in quite a dark place, to be honest with you. As I say, I could sell, and I was doing okay. We had 3 young kids at the time, really young kids, in buggies and prams. So I basically was going from I went into a sort of commission-only job. So it was a real sink or swim moment, but I kind of thrive on that, I guess, in that challenge, and that's how I started becoming a mortgage advisor.
Are you quite compulsive? Because that's quite a big, to have small kid jump jaw, do you know what I mean? It's like...
Yeah, I'm not even sure if I phoned Claire at the time, if I'm honest with you. I hope I did. I would now, I think I did. But for me, it was going into a situation where you were selling a product, or you're convincing, the art of sales to me is convincing somebody that the product you've got is better than the next person's. And when it came to mortgages, it was just a nice situation to be in to help somebody buy their first or second or third home, or a buy-to-let, or whatever it might be. And that was music. As a salesperson, I thought, what a great product. And actually the insurance sales, which was the part of the job that I was already doing, was then a really easy thing to do, because it was things that people need. there aren't many people now who will have a mortgage who don't have some form of life insurance or critical illness or income protection. So yeah, I am quite impulsive, I would say, in the main.
And so at that point you were an employee within a bigger firm, presumably, but then you started out on your own.
Almost. I was also self-employed in the insurance sales, so it wasn't going from an employed role into self-employed.
Right, okay.
And the business started in Gala Shields at that point, so we lived on the Melrose Road, and I did it for about a year. Started the business on my own in my back bedroom, arranging mortgages for people, and knew very little about it, if I'm honest with you, but just had to learn. And then I wanted to really prove concept to make sure it was something that I wanted to do, and it was something that was scalable, because I never ever wanted to be just on my own arranging mortgages. I wanted to try and grow the business. And so about a year later, once I'd proven that it could be done, I recruited our first employee effectively, a chap called Aaron Frizzle, who's still with us today. So yeah, so he's about, I don't know, he must be 15, 16 years with us now, and he's one of the directors and shareholders in this business now. And then about a year later, I then recruited another guy, and then very quickly another person. So this was in 2008. This was at the start of that horrible big recession that lasted from the end of 2007, 8-ish to 2013. So it was quite an interesting time to be in the finance game. And one of the things I'm most proud of is the fact that those three guys that are still in the business today. So the original four guys that kind of really helped shape the business are still in it today. So Ross Stacey, a shout out to Ross Stacey and Chris Norton. They're still in it as well. So.
Yeah, wow. And that's quite it's a big thing actually for as you grow a business, for people to kind of almost go from that self-employed kind of one person in the business to the first employee, and then starting to actually recruit a team. Yeah. So you kind of indicated there that it was always your intention to kind of start building a team once you'd proved the concept. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So again, I'll correct myself slightly. Those early days, these guys actually came on as self-employed advisors. So it was even bigger a commitment to them to come on. One of the chaps, Chris Norton, was leaving a really secure job with Britannia Building Society, and it was right when things were going a bit pear-shaped with RBS and so on. And I remember him phoning me and saying, Dom, I'm not sure about this. I'm not sure about becoming a self-employed advisor at this time in 2008. I said, I'll be fine. It'll be fine. You'll be great. And to be fair, he's got an amazing business now and doing really, really well under our self-employed division. But to answer your question a little bit more specifically, so as I say, it was never my intention to continue to be an advisor. I always wanted to grow something that was of reasonable size. And at the time, to be honest with you, didn't really know what that was. Yeah. I'm a massive believer in planning and having decent business plans, and I've done loads of them over the years. Do I do them as often as I should? Probably not. But certainly in those early stages, I did do quite a lot of planning and just a hell of a lot of thinking. Which way are we taking this, and how do we want the business to look in 5 years, 10 years? Again, big believer in starting with the end in mind. And I suppose where we are now today, if you look back to some of those early business plans, which I do from time to time, there are definitely, elements that was planned out right from the get-go.
Yeah. And that's interesting, actually, just what you said there. But do you actually sometimes go back and look at some of the early business plans then?
It's interesting. In preparation for this morning, I was having a look at my laptop around some of the inspirational stuff that I've collected over the years. And do you know, I think people are guilty of forgetting as much as forgetting lots of really, really good stuff and always looking for new stuff. So it was really interesting going through my laptop this morning and finding some old plans and things like that. So it's something I'm going to do. I'm going to go back and just have a look through, because, as I say, there'll be good ideas in there that you kind of forget as you go along. So what I will say, we then went from having 4 advisors essentially, and then I recruited quite heavily after that. Recruited about another 3 or 4 advisors quite quickly, probably around about 2011, 12. And that was tough. It was really, really tough going from the 4 core guys to then going to sort of 8 or 9 advisors. And it was an interesting time in the business. There was a lot of lessons learned in that time about recruitment and about resource and the right levels of support. And that time then, I often think that it's the tough times, I'd say this to the team, when we're having a bad week, it's the tough times that define us as a business. It's not the good times. It's not when everything's going great that you go, oh, look how amazing we are. It's the really, really tough times where you've got to dig deep and ask for that little bit more. So that was definitely that period. And there was times, without getting too deep and meaningful, there was times in 2009 to 2012 where, I really hated the business, could have seen it far enough, wasn't enjoying it, in quite a dark place. But it was actually my favourite book, which is Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, which I'm sure you guys have read. Yeah. It was probably that book more than anything that kind of dragged me through those periods. It really was, and I read it a number of times. And I know a good friend and somebody Lewis Roden has read it loads of times as well. But it was that never give up. It was that value of whatever life throws at you, just don't give up. And I guess learning from the mistakes and adapting and changing your thinking is something that I'm massive on as well. I think if you're not making mistakes, you're arguably not going fast enough, not going hard enough. So those times were tricky, no doubt about it. Claire was amazing as well. One of the things I wanted to say was that in those early stages, when myself and Claire first started our family, Claire was very supportive. She knew what I wanted to do, that I wanted to grow a business, and I wanted to, I wanted to do my own thing. And she was amazingly supportive. At that time, we had 3 young kids, and she was like, you just go and do what you want to do, and she was really supportive. And of course now she's our CFO and a huge part in the business and an amazing business partner. So people say, how are you still together after like 18 years, husband and wife, and in the business together? But it's great. Do you know when it's really, really good times, then it's amazing to share those times. But it's when it's tough that can be hard.
Have you got a specific example of a moment that in those dark days, in a dark day where there was a situation, and how did you solve that? Have you just got like an example that comes to mind of like one of those situations?
Yeah, there was a time, so it was a little bit later in the business. We'd recruited a number of advisors, and we were working at London Road at the time. Had an office in Livingston and an office in London Road, and we had, I can't remember, maybe 10 advisors, 12 advisors, and it was like bang, bang, bang. Within 2 weeks, we had about 4 or 5 resignations, and they were going on to do other things and whatever else. And I remember one of the guys, who shall remain nameless, said, "Dom, you're losing everybody here, and what's going on?" And that. It wasn't a light bulb moment, but that was one of the toughest times, and there wasn't so much a lesson in there, but it was just back to that never give up mentality by Napoleon Hill, and dig deep and learn from those mistakes and go again. And I now help other businesses, without sounding condescending. I like to try and help other businesses that sit within our network for them to grow. And there's so many similarities. People do move on, right? It doesn't matter how good a position somebody might have. Other opportunities do come along, and that's just part of running a business. So yeah, that was definitely a kind of defining moment.
So obviously that kind of the financial crash in 2008, that was a hard period, and then that was a bit of a practice ground for what was then to come in COVID. So I mean, how did that prepare you? How did you deal with COVID then? Because that again must have been a big thing for you.
Yeah, it was a huge thing, as it was for everybody. And I don't know, I come back to the point I made earlier. For me, it's the difficult times that define you, not the easy times. And I was really, really proud of the team, first of all. So the team at the time, we kind of redeployed them that afternoon, had them up and running at home with laptops and the phones, and we already had people who were working from home, and a lot of our business is done over the telephone anyway. Very, very, very seldom do we see clients face to face anymore. Most of our business is transacted over the phone. So anyway, the operational part of running the business was reasonably easy. Mental health was a massive thing during COVID. It always was, and it always will be, no doubt. But it was a huge thing. We had got quite a young team, so a young team and a lot of people in their sort of 20s, early 20s were working from we had one instance where a girl was working from effectively a bed set. So she was speaking to clients, she was sleeping, she was cooking her lunch or dinner, and living in this one room sort of thing. And I think from a personal point of view, you count your blessings for what you have. We live down in the Scottish borders and lots of countryside, albeit, we were only allowed out for 20 minutes a day or whatever it was during that crazy time. But yeah, I think the way I tried to look at that, there was a lot of businesses in a far worse position than us, not least of all hospitality trade. I've got good friends who run hotels and stuff down in Melrose, and these businesses really went through some tough times. But I do think opportunity comes out of adverse situations, and there was an opportunity there for us to look at our business, put it under the microscope, and dare I say reshape how we did certain things, and we became stronger at being a telephony based business out of that. So
and on the you touched on the kind of the mental health side of things, and of course that became much more talked about, didn't it, through COVID? Yeah. What have you done kind of for yourself personally and also for the business to really address mental health in the right kind of way?
Yeah, I mean, mental health's huge now, isn't it? It's everywhere. It's obviously less taboo, and quite rightly so, than it's been in the past. And I think as an employer, you've got a duty of care to make sure people are okay and they're in a good place. And as I say, during those COVID times, it was very, very difficult to check in with people and make sure they were okay, because people can tell you one thing over the phone, can't they? So I think prevention is almost better than cure in many ways with these sorts of things. And credit to Claire runs HR as well as finance in our business, and her team are amazing as well at our culture and making sure people are happy in their jobs. One of the biggest things for me, one of our core values as you walk out the door is enjoy the journey, right? So that's one of our core values, along with never give up, funnily enough. But enjoy the journey is all about life's very, very short. You spend a hell of a lot of time at work, and therefore, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you should really go and find a job that you enjoy doing. It's that old saying, isn't it? If you enjoy your job, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, conversely to that, if you hate your job, then you're just absolutely miserable. From a selfish point of view, and there is an ulterior motive here, but if I want people to be peak performers in my business, then it helps a hell of a lot if they enjoy what they're doing. So we do a lot of time and a lot of effort into just the little things. So we have suggestion boxes, we have monthly staff engagements, surveys, we have regular catch-ups. I think we've got karaoke this week. We were at Top Golf 2 weeks ago. So we do lots and lots of fun events just to keep people happy. And we have a spin the wheel every week where we celebrate just little successes and little wins. People get one of the wins is a long lie, so you can start an hour early. Another one's a scratch card and a bottle of wine. And so we just try to make it as fun as possible. So back to your point, I think from a mental health point of view, I think it's about trying to prevent those things as much as trying to cure them. But I think we've got to be aware in the business when people are struggling, for sure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you talked just before we kind of started chatting, kind of with a microphone in front of us, about you've given up some booze and fags. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So
what was behind that for
I suppose being honest, I've struggled myself with mental health for a few years, to be honest. And there's not a lot of people particularly know this, so this is an interesting medium to talk about this. But as I say, I don't think it's anything necessarily to be ashamed of. And as I say, over the last sort of 2-3 years, it's just been something that's been more relevant for me, and it's been tough because I always saw myself as a really, really mentally strong person. Like nothing would ever kind of faze me. And I think mental health has got it's a sneaky little bugger. It kind of sneaks up on you, and before you know it, you can be in not such a good place. And one of the things that I wanted to try was to stop drinking. So yeah, I stopped drinking in December. That's me for almost 5 months, and feeling great for it, to be honest. And so that was definitely one of the reasons. But yeah, you're right. I used to have a sneaky cigarette when I was having a beer, and I really wanted to knock that on the head as well. So that's the other reason why I've stopped. And I've also got a bet on with the kids, right? So the kids, my eldest son says, "Dad, there is no way you're not drinking for 6 months. I'll bet you $1,000 that you have a drink within 6 months." So clearly I shook his hand there and then. And I gave him an early cash out. I said, "If you give me 700 quid now, we'll call it quits." But yeah, so I've got that bet on for 6 months. And then funnily enough, my eldest daughter and my youngest daughter, they did, I'll have a bit of that. So I've got £1,000 bet with them as well. So I need to make sure that I take their money off.
So you can start getting all their pocket money back.
Exactly.
From them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a bit of a no-win situation for a dad, right? Isn't it? Like, am I really going to take the money off them? Too right, I am, and I'll maybe give them it back on a holiday that we no doubt pay for. So.
Have you seen a massive change in your mindset in the last 4 months? Like, have you noticed?
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
you feel better?
Far more positive. I mean, don't get me wrong, right? It wasn't like every night I was drinking a bottle of wine, but it's like most people these days. You have quite busy social lives. Our industry is very social in general, and it's a difficult thing to say no to in terms of going out. So it was it just. I felt that I just needed to have a bit of a sort of change, and I felt much better for it. That's what I was going to say. So you find that as you get older as well, 46 now. So as you get a little bit older, those hangovers last an extra day or two, don't they? So rather than going into the Monday, you're then into Tuesday or the Wednesday, and so you're definitely fresher on a Monday morning. And to be honest, it's quite a big year for us in the business as well. So I really wanted to give it 100% focus and attention on just thinking about the business more. So that was the other main reason. At this stage, I don't actually know if I'll go back. I'm quite keen just to keep on going and not drinking, but we'll see how that pans out.
And why is this a big year for you?
Just because it's been a difficult couple of years. We're kind of in growth mode again, so we've got some interesting strategies going forward. We're part of a much bigger organisation called Mortgage Advice Bureau, a public company based out of Derby. We've got a great relationship, a great partnership with them. They're a hugely successful business, and we're one of their sort of key partners going forward. And we've got some good opportunities to grow the business again. We want to ramp up activity in certain areas, and we'll want to get out at the end of this year in a stronger place. And so, yeah, I mean, I think every year's important, but this year and next year in particular, I think are key for us. So,
and again, you talk about the growth. I mean, you've got a sizable team now as well, and you talked also about the importance of values. So, the question I've got is, you've got employed and you've got self-employed people within the team. So how do you going to get them all to buy into the values? You've mentioned two, I think. What was it? Enjoy the journey, never give up.
So we have 5 core values in the business. So we have embrace the challenge of change. Just quickly, I'll explain. Yeah. So embrace the challenge of change is really linked to the fact that things are changing so quickly in all industries, but not least of all ours. And I think you either become a bit of a dinosaur and ultimately become extinct, or you try and move with the times and roll with the punches, or dare I say, you become innovative and try and become a market disturber yourself. So we would absolutely want to be the latter of those 3 things. So that's why embrace the challenge of change is good. And it's also linked to other challenges that come along. Never give up, I've mentioned. And the never give up one's huge for me. It's arguably the most important one, because it's kind of kept me focused and driven and all the rest of it. And that is a huge one. And what I mean by that is, I think if you truly get in and believe those words, then whatever it is that you're striving for, if you're determined, no matter how many times you get hit, you get knocked down, that you will never give up and you'll learn and you become stronger for it, then whatever it is that you're trying to aspire to, then it ceases to become a question of if and it becomes a question of when. So I think just really believing in that is so important to me. We've got enjoy the journey, which we've already spoken about. Strive for perfection in everything we do is one, and that comes from that sort of middle management term. What does good look like? And I just thought, well, if we're going to go down that route, let's not just be good, let's try and strive for perfection. And there's a great quote from an American football player turned coach, Vince Lombardi, I think his name was, who said, in pursuit, perfection is arbitrary, right? But in pursuit of perfection, you can catch excellence.
Nice.
So anyway, that was that one, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And what about the 5th one then? So
the 5th one is enjoy the journey, never give up. That's terrible. Embrace the challenge. So the 5th one is what I used to say to my clients. Quite an important one, actually. So it sits above my desk at work, and that is leave no stone unturned. And really, what that is about, I used to say that to my clients, right? So when I would get a client come in and they would say, "Oh, I don't know if you'll get me a mortgage. I've been to the bank and I can't get one." I just used to say, "Look, if I can't get your mortgage, you'll not be able to get one, because I will do everything I possibly can to make sure we can get a solution for you." And I used to quite like that challenge, and so I've tried to bring that into all the other advisors, and get them believing in that concept that you need to go to the ends of the earth to try and find a solution for this client, because it's just the right thing to do. And it doesn't matter whether it's, we're a commercial business, yeah, so it doesn't matter whether it's a £50,000 mortgage or a £500,000 mortgage. You treat every client exactly the same, and you do everything you can for that client. And if you can find them a solution where maybe they failed elsewhere, then you've got a client for life, and they're more likely to recommend you to other people and all that sort of stuff. So in terms of your question around, it's difficult. So when I say we have self-employed advisors, these are business owners in their own right. Some of them have their own brand, which is great. Some of them follow on to the Mortgage Advice Bureau brand. They have their own values, and they have their own customer base, and have their own introducers. But we act as a sort of quasi-network, mortgage network, where we provide ancillary benefits and services. And dare I say, we work more with some than others, but it's definitely it's an exciting place to be, and it's great to see when people are enjoying success and growing their businesses. It sounds a bit cheesy, but Jim Rohn, who again I'm sure you're both aware of, hugely influential in my early days as a business person. I used to listen to his tape in the car. That's how many years ago it was. Driving around in bloody Orkney or Shetland or Lewis or Inverness or wherever I was, and just think, I need to get out of this. I need to do something else. But some of the stuff that it was all about multi-level marketing, his stuff, wasn't it? But some of the quotes he used to say were brilliant. If you can help enough people achieve their goals, then surely you'll have all of yours. Yeah. And again, it does sound a wee bit kind of cheesy, right? But that's kind of what our business is. If we can help enough people, whether employed or self-employed, I want our team to have the best careers they can possibly have the best businesses if they're self-employed as they can possibly have. And we want to help them as much as we can to achieve that. And that's the great thing about being in our business, and that's why I love it so much, that if they are successful and we can help them be successful, then we are in turn successful as well. So that's the kind of core model, if you like.
Nice. And it's interesting, I'm listening to kind of your 5 values, and they're good values for business, but actually you've also got 3 kids as well. And I wonder how much 4 kids. Sorry, my apologies. 4 kids.
It's all right.
And
I can't forget the last one.
They apply, I guess, to the kids, right? Because there's some good messages in there for the kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the values are pretty generic, aren't they? They could be, they could be aligned to all different types of things, whether it's other businences or family life. But I completely agree. They never give up. The obvious one there is when you're learning to ride a bike as a kid, or enjoy the journey, kids. Do what you want to do and enjoy it. And I think as well, don't be frightened to try other things. Like, I think a lot, sometimes too much, but I'd like to try other things at some point. I'm firmly fixed on what I'm doing at the moment, but I think there's something else that I might want to try in the future. And I think that's an important thing as well, is don't get too stuck. There are other things out there, and you only get one go at this. It's not a dress rehearsal. So, try different things and enjoy what you're doing. So I think there's definitely lessons in there with kids as well.
I think for me, you said generic. I would say widely applicable. But the thing that kind of comes across is that you know all the values, and you can talk with passion about every single one of them. And I think the one thing that I notice is that sometimes people talk about values, and then you probe for a little bit more. It's like, that's all I've got. It's a fancy word, or it's like, oh God. But it's that, and that's why I was keen to understand how that works for you in business.
Yeah, I mean, I do a session with everybody that joins the business now, and one of them is, so it's the core values is what I do with them, and I run through that, and I get really quite passionate about it. But they are up on the walls at work, and one of the things I asked them is, right, where have you came from? I won't name any retail banking, but they've maybe came from a big bank or somewhere else. And I said, do you know what their values were? Do you know what their mantra was, or their strapline? And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And when did you last discuss it? And quite often it's never, So we do quite a lot with the military. So reasonable big supporters of Soldiers Charity, and we're a silver covenant holder with the Ministry of Defence. So I just love some of the sort of ethics and the values that they stand by. I mean, the biggest one that always sticks in my head is selfless commitment, as one of their values. But you wouldn't, I don't think, meet somebody who is ex-service or current serving member of the military, and for them not to know what those values are.
Yeah.
And there's something quite important and interesting about that, I think. And it's not because it's drummed into them, I don't think. It's because they believe in it, and you know, I think they, in the main, want to be part of it. Is my perception, anyway.
Yeah, amazing. This is all really interesting. We always ask all our guests, kind of the last question is, what is your guiding principle in business? What do you?
God, it's a good question. If I struggle to pick one, but it depends on who you are. It depends if you, excuse me. Depends if you're very entrepreneurial. Depends if you're very safe. You know, if you're a very, very safe person and you want to just, you want to have a safe environment. You want to earn your money and you want to maybe grow something that you can be proud of, but is just safe. Then it's very different from somebody that wants to build a multi-million-pound business. I think fundamentally you've got to enjoy what you do. I mean, the thing that I wrote down there was for me personally is to never stop dreaming of what's down the road, what can happen next. And I think if you stand by one of my own personal values is to be as honest as I can be and operate my life and my business with integrity, because whenever I get to the point where I hopefully think, you know, that I've had some success now, I don't want to do it having known I've cheated along the way, because I think the whole thing's just a waste of time then. I don't want to get to 50, 60, 70-year-old and think, yeah, I've got my house in Como or whatever it might be, but I've cheated along the way and I've shafted people along the way. There's a great saying, I get a lot of inspiration from films actually, and there's a great saying in a film that, you know, you never shafted anybody who didn't shaft you first. And I think, so, I think that, so do it with honesty and integrity, I think is quite important. I'm quite an ambitious person, and I always want to grow things. I love building things and growing things, and I actually love just building things at home and growing things. But the danger with that is, are you ever actually content in what you want and what you do? So without getting too deep and meaningful, I think contentment is a hugely undervalued trait. And quite often you find, certainly the entrepreneurs that I've met and dare I say worked with in the past, quite often they're not particularly content in what in their own lives, I think. And that is, I think that's a shame, to be honest with you. And so I look at other people. So my wife's a perfect example of this. Claire just is a really easygoing, very, very content person and just generally happy all the time. And that, to me, I'd rather have not a penny and be happy than have all the money in the world and be miserable. So that to be honest with you, that's probably one of the guiding principles to answer your previous question is try and find contentment in whatever it is that you do, because you don't want to get to 50, 60, be burnt out, retire and be miserable and have not a lot of fun. So that's probably more important. And it's something that I really, really struggle with, because Claire always said, if you once you get to that point, you'll always want more, and it's just probably right. And it's almost a bit of a sort of affliction that you know. So I don't know, trying to find contentment. One of the things I want to try and get into, and I've not done it yet, is meditation and just being, a bit more of that sort of stuff. So I'm Live Like a Monk. I've just read, which is a good book by Jay Shetty. Is it Live Like a Monk? I think it is. It's Jay Shetty's book, and there's some really, really interesting stuff in there. And I think there's got to be a balance between that entrepreneurial driving forward and just trying to be content. So, sorry, I backtracked there.
No. I think that's a good perspective to share, and maybe it's tied in. This idea of what gives you most joy out of your business, because obviously you started in 2004. You've built a kind of an impressive business there, Dom. What are the things that give you most joy?
I think being able to run the business that I want to run it gives me a huge amount of joy. And we're not there, although we're a decent sized business, there are always challenges that come along in terms of how you run that business. So I think we're on a nice trajectory at the moment. There's a lot of good stuff going on. So being able to run the business with all the right type of resource that we want is a nice position to be in when that comes along. And again, back to the sort of more sort of cheesy one is seeing other people be successful. I think that does give me the most joy when I see some of our our self-employed network members really doing well. It's really exciting for me, and we're massive on career development as well. So every single person that joins the business is offered a career development pathway after 6 months once they've served probation. And there was 1 year, a few years ago, pre-COVID, we had something like 16 internal promotions. So we've got 2 guys at the minute who've just passed their CMAP, which is the qualification for mortgage advice, who've just passed that. They started as an administrator, became a client relations advisor, and are now going to become an advisor. And so they've gone from a low-paying job, joined us on a really nice career trajectory, and will end up being a professional mortgage advisor. So that also gives me a lot of joy as well.
And what about people that leave your business then? Do you know, having kind of invested in them and then they leave?
Yeah, that's a frustration, isn't it, when people do that, especially when they're good, and especially when they go to a competitor. But I was interested. I came across something this morning when I was looking through my files, and I think you've got to take the positives. If you start getting frustrated by these things, then it just eats you up. And again, if you try and rise above it, one of the really exciting things for that is that we've helped somebody in their career, and they've gone on hopefully to a better job somewhere else. And it might not be with a competitor, it might be with somebody else. But if we've played a small part in that person's career and their life, then I think you've got to take a lot of joy in that, I guess. So yeah, it is frustrating. There are instances where you do put a lot of investment in, and you help them along the way, and then perhaps they maybe leave for what we deem to be the wrong reason. It is quite a transient industry we're in. People do move around. There's a lot of greener, grassier fields out there that, lo and behold, when they dig into it, they're not greener or grassier. And even as you try to convince people that that's the case, often it's difficult to get them to listen. But it is what it is. I think in all the years, I've done hundreds, if not thousands, of interviews and recruited lots of people over the years. You just accept that as a bigger business, that people will move on. And as long as we've played a positive part in their career, that's all you can ask for.
Nice. Sorry, mate.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been great to hear your story, and good luck in the future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it. Thanks, guys.
Very good. Excellent.
Cheers.